Hi, I'm David Rizzo at Rogers Gardens, and I'm doing the monthly checklist for you. I'm not David Rizzo, I'm Sarah Smith. So if you watch any of the videos, you've probably seen me. I've done some of the live streams in the past. So I'm making a guest appearance for David today, and I'm going to tell you what to do in your garden this month of July. This is such a weird weather month for us, always, every year. Every year we're like, wow, the weather's so weird. And I'm like, I say that all the time. So it isn't weird. It's always like this. So it's like cool and misty right now, but it's humid. So there's a lot of stuff to do in the garden to kind of keep up with what you have growing. At this point, hopefully you've upped your water a little bit because plants are getting a little more thirsty because of the heat that we have at the end of the day. So if you're watering, a couple times a week, bump that up by one. No one should be watering every single day. I can't tell you how many times I tell people that. You should be watering a couple of times a week, 2 times a week, maybe 3, but going for a long period of time because you really want to saturate those lower roots, but you want the top layer of your soil to dry out and create kind of a crust. So the way we do that is not by watering every single day for a couple of minutes, but watering a couple times a week for a long time. So let's start adjusting our water. I'm going to show you some of the things that you can plant right now. This is a time of a lot of shifting and changing for our annual color, so we got a lot of really pretty things going on here. I'm going to point out some of my favorites here. The other thing that we have going on here at Rogers Gardens is we have major monarch activity happening in the garden right now, which is really fun, and we offer these gorgeous little butterfly boxes, which is just right down here, but it comes with a lot of different stuff that the butterflies like to eat. Nectar-wise for the adults, and it also comes with a native milkweed, so this is what you'll get the babies on. They'll lay their little eggs on these, and then the babies will hatch, and the caterpillars will eat, and they'll go someplace else. They'll make their chrysalis, they'll hatch, and then they need stuff to drink from. So not only does the box contain basically the nursery for the monarchs, but it also contains the restaurant food for all the mommies and daddies. So that's a really great deal. We also have today is the start, actually yesterday was the start of Hummingbird Summer. So we have tons of hummingbird activity right now too, and hopefully you do in your garden as well, but we have really beautiful boxes with hummingbird nectar plants. We even have a kids kit this year, which is really cute. It's got a little hummingbird feeder in there and tiny little trowels. It's got plants in there, a coloring book, all kinds of really cool things. It makes a really good gift. And it's just all ready to go with pretty tissue and all of that. So some of the plants included in both those boxes, and some of the stuff that's really good this time of year, which just works perfectly because it's all in time with what is happening in the garden, is hummingbird, mostly hummingbird and butterfly nectar plants. So one of my favorites, this is Ageranum. I love this plant so much, super pretty. Nice. You can always tell when it's something for a butterfly because it's like a helicopter landing pad. It's like a perfect little spot for them to land and to eat, and it's shallow, unlike the hummingbird plants. But this is a great time for planting Ageranum. Lobelia is kind of popping off right now, so if you need to fill in for spaces for color, Lobelia obviously comes in that bright blue electric color that you're used to, but also in pretty whites and purples. I'm going to set things behind me as we go because my table is so full. Gomphrena, I love Gomphrena. Nice pretty height, really cool to put in the backdrop of plants. So that way you have some height there with some like really pretty colors. Comes in oranges and reds. The cool thing about all the kind of annual stuff to plant now is it transitions really well into fall. So you get a lot of really bright kind of electric colors for summer, but a lot of them also, lots of really good oranges and yellows, which will transfer really well into the fall, like Rudbeckia. This is super pretty in the summertime, planted with blues and bright pinks, but then you can take out some of that blues and bright pinks and start adding all the pretty like oranges and dark colors for Halloween. That's the next holiday we have coming up, and one of my favorite holidays. So Coleus, gorgeous, really pretty right now. Good thing to plant in the garden right now. Also marigolds, zinnias too are great. So 6 packs of zinnias, super cheap. We have one of my other favorite ones I'm just going to point out here. This is, they call it summer snapdragon, not a snapdragon, so it's totally different. But this is Angelonia. Angelonia comes in purples and like hot pinks and the pretty white, and it's tall and gives you that good height. and gives you that good vertical growth, but so fabulous for filling into spots and really good this time of year because it can take that summer heat. The key when you're planting all your annual stuff right now is just to make sure that you keep it well watered so it gets established, so it breaks out of that little root ball and gets into the surrounding soil. And that way it can be really happy and healthy for you and established, and then you don't have to worry about watering too often. You always want to do that deep watering, so then that way you don't have to water all the time, because that way the roots aren't high and shallow, they're nice and low and deep. Also New Guinea impatiens, really popular at this point. Vinca too, so these are all some of the good things. Cosmos, I'm going to put them down so I can make a little bit of room for myself. Let's talk about veggies, because I know if you watch David's stuff, you probably hear a lot of veg talk. So let's talk about what kind of stuff is good right now for vegetables. Hopefully you got all your tomatoes and all your peppers, eggplants, cucumbers, green beans, all those kind of stuff in the garden already. Some of it might already be kind of wrapping up for you, or maybe some of it didn't make it, so it's a good time to put a couple of things in. This is the last chance this month to get in your pumpkins if you want to have pumpkins in time for Halloween. So pumpkins, we have a lot of different varieties here. This is Big Mac, so be prepared for a big vine and a big fruit. But if you don't put them in now, don't bother. So if you want pumpkins for Halloween, make sure you get that started now. Herbs, also a fantastic time always for herbs. You can pretty much plant herbs year round, but some of the really good ones to get in the garden right now is your basil. We're nice and warmed up at nighttime, so it works really well. Tip when you harvest your basil, you're not going to take little side leaves off. Everybody's always afraid to touch the top and they pull all the little side leaves off. You're going to actually pinch right at the top. Scary, right? Everybody panics. Oh! But what happens is that's going to stop it from flowering. And the thing you don't want your basil to do is flower. And that will encourage bushiness and more tips to grow. So you take that first tip out when you're ready to harvest. Now more tips are going to start growing, and you're going to have a nice, big, full, bushy plant. Also great time for dill. This is a really popular summer thing. You know, you think about all the potato salads and stuff. Dill's really great. Fern leaf dill is my favorite because if you're doing it for the foliage, go with the fern leaf, not the bouquet, which that's more for the flowers, which a lot of people aren't really using dill flowers around here, quite honestly. So those are all your veggie things. Sweet peas are wrapped up, so you probably should be pulling your sweet peas, cut all those flowers off, pull them out. If you let some of it go to seed, you can start saving the seed for that. Fruit trees and strawberries, pretty much done for planting those kind of things. They're starting to set their fruit right now. Watch for things like mites and stuff like that. This is the time when you're really kind of looking at your garden kind of constantly and deciding, does this look like this is getting a bug? Does this look like it's getting powdery mildew, which is huge because of how weird and really foggy and stuff the weather has been. Powdery mildew is on everything. So if you have it, don't panic because everybody has it. We have it here. We're controlling it. Some of the things that I like to use, my favorite spray right here, this is a Safer 3-in-1. If you have powdery mildew on your dahlias, on your roses, on your tomatoes, on your cucumbers, these are all things I have powdery mildew on at my house right now. It's really, really common. This spray is fantastic. So you're going to go and spray about once a month. So check for all those powdery mildew and the rust. That's when you see that white layer on the leaves. Don't panic because it's common. Another thing that you can actually do, which also makes everybody feel a little weary, because when we tell you to water, we tell you don't top water your plants because you don't want the tops of your plants to be wet all the time. But a once a month spray down is not bad. Contrary to popular belief, that is not going to cause powdery mildew problems. It's actually going to wash some of the spores down, wash some of those little tiny bugs down, knock them off onto the ground where they can't survive, and that will help control your powdery mildew and some of your small pest problems. I'm not telling you to do it once a week. I'm saying once a month. Give everything a good hose down. That is not a bad idea to do. You can also spray with this, so give it a good spray down once, spray it with this continually to kill all those spores so it doesn't take foot in other parts of your plants, basically. I'm going to cheat and look at my notes here so I don't miss anything. Grapes, your grapes are probably went crazy and now they're starting to kind of slow down. Make sure you're fertilizing your grapes. Something easy like a rose and flower fertilizer. This one I really like. I even will use this on my tomatoes because I want to encourage more flowers. So I go back and forth between the all-purpose and this. I do that a lot with some of my plants. Also my gardenia, not Yes, let's talk about gardenias. I was going to talk about something else, but gardenias, the acid fertilizer right now, this is a great time to give them the acid fertilizer. If you're noticing that they're getting some yellow leaves, which you might be noticing right now on your gardenias, a little bit of the iron will help so they don't have that yellowing. It's super common for gardenias to get that problem, but if you're feeding them the acid fertilizer, you want to continue to feed them now. They're still probably pretty flushed out with flowers, but this will help with your yellowing. Camellias, you can do one fertilizer now, but they're pretty much wrapping up. Camellias are almost done at this point. Azaleas, do not prune your azaleas right now. Hopefully you pruned your azaleas before, but if you prune them now, you're going to be pruning off all the spots where they're going to flower. Do not prune your azaleas, or else you're just going to have a green bush. And that's also going to take the acid fertilizer. The other thing that I was going to bring up that likes the acid fertilizer is where is my plant? Geraniums. Geraniums really like a little bit of acidity. So if you've got geraniums at home, the rose and flower fertilizer is great, but maybe twice a year swap it out to the acid fertilizer. With your geraniums, you want to make sure that you're deadheading. So if you have flowers that aren't looking good, the nice thing is they just kind of snap off perfectly. It's so amazing. But deadhead your geraniums to keep them nice and clean. Watch them for rust and powdery mildew as well. It's going to be a really common theme in the garden, especially with the type of weather that we've been having. Mulch, put down compost. So I have my nice little thing of compost right here. We have two different composts that I really like. Compost is different than potting soil. Compost is different than raised bed soil where it's adding bulk. Compost is really nutrient dense. You don't need a lot of it. A thin layer through the garden is not a bad idea. I'm talking like ½ an inch. This is a good time to do it because we are heating up and it'll keep the soil nice and cool, and it's going to add a lot of nutrients into your soil. Good soil is key. If your soil is bad, your garden's never going to ever be any good. So good soil, super key. And then mulching. So I like to put a thin layer of compost down on the ground and then cover it with mulch. And this is the shredded cedar. We do shredded cedar, and we also do shredded redwood. I like the cedar because it smells good. And also, just like cedar planks and stuff that people put into their closet, it keeps bugs away. So it's a natural kind of bug repellent. Your citrus, you want to do your last fertilizing on your citrus. If it's in the ground, if it's in pots, you can fertilize a little bit more. This is something I really love. If your citrus is looking really kind of peaked, this is a really great micronutrient, not macro. So this is kind of like taking a vitamin. This is not replacing your fertilizer. It's in addition to your fertilizer to help correct any kind of like yellowing leaves that you might have, kind of deficient looking citrus, especially in pots. I find that they really kind of tend to go a little kind of deficient. Dahlias are popping up. I love dahlias. They're so pretty. They're my favorite. Dahlias go from this size to this size. So it's really, really fun. Again, watch for them for powdery mildew as well. And we're going to have time for questions, I think, a little bit. Yeah? So a couple more things I want to talk about is roses. Fertilize your roses. Fertilize. Rose slug is very common at this point. If you're looking at your leaves and they're kind of skeletalized, that is rose slug, which is actually not really a slug, but is actually the sawfly larva. So spray with this guy, do that once a month, pull off the worst looking leaves, so then that way you kind of can tell if the problem's getting worse or not. Fuchsias, fertilize. You see a common thing here, water. Tuberous begonias, we're selling them now. They're so pretty. Look at these. Tuberous begonias, fertilize, water. So the common thing, watch for bugs, watch for pests, watch for mildew, keep everything fertilized, keep everything cool, fix up the water. The one thing you don't want to water right now, do not water your California natives too much. California natives don't like a wet summer because we don't have wet summers. They like wet winters. So that's the one thing that you don't want to water too crazily. And if you're going to plant any kind of fruit, you can do avocados right now because avocados like to be planted, and bananas when it's warm. They're those kind of oddballs. So this is a good time to add all the avocados that you want into your garden, all the bananas that you want into your garden as well. So I did that super duper fast, right? What questions do we have, if we have any?
Yeah, I actually don't currently have any right now.
Cool.
So
that's because I was so thorough.
I know, right?
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you put your questions down below later, we can always answer those questions for you. Next month, you'll be seeing David again. So I'm just his stand-in for the day. And then come in and check out Hummingbird Summer. Check out all the beautiful boxes that we have, all the beautiful butterfly boxes. We currently have some little caterpillars in a little pop-up right now because we found quite a few on some plants and we put them in a nice little pop-up so you can see them munching away. You can watch them make their chrysalis, which is like the most gorgeous thing ever. Can monarchs be any cooler? Like, they're so pretty and ethereal and gorgeous as they fly, but then also their cocoons, their chrysalis are beautiful. They look like jade with gold on them. I mean, how is that even possible? It's just, Mother Nature is so amazing. It just blows my mind how amazing it is. The hummingbirds are going crazy right now all over the place. We even have a couple little nests that we've all been watching. So we have some little babies that are just finally kind of getting out of the nest and flying around. So it's really fun to watch them. So there's so much happening in the garden. We'll be doing talks on Saturdays and Sundays all about hummingbirds. Talking about how to keep your feeders clean. If you are going to do hummingbird feeders, it is a responsibility, right? So you have to do it right and make sure that they don't get moldy. You don't want to harm them by trying to feed them. So we'll talk all about how to do a hummingbird feeder right. We'll be talking about all the different kinds of plants that you can plant for hummingbirds, even if you have shade. A lot of people are like, oh, I have shade, I can't attract hummingbirds. Or, oh, I have a balcony, I can't bring any hummingbirds in. You can. I'm going to tell you all about how to do that. You'll see Suzanne doing those talks as well. So we have a lot of fun things going on here, so make sure you come check it out. There's a special on the plants every single week for Hummingbird Summer. The salvia right now is the plant of the week. It's 30% off, and it's always going to change for something else. So you're going to see things like pentas, and you're going to see things like kufia. Those will all be discounted for 1 gallons and larger, so that we can come in and get it. We're still doing our milkweed exchange. So if you have a tropical milkweed, pull that sucker out of the ground, bring it in, get the right kind, because why have the wrong kind when you can have the right kind for free, right? So we will help you slowly get rid of all of those. Don't let them seed in the garden, those tropical ones. And the way you know if you got a tropical one, is it red? Is it orange? Is it yellow? Is the wrong one. Make sure that you do not have those in the garden. They should only have the native milkweed. We have all kinds of videos about that so you can understand a little bit more about why that's the case. So thank you so much. Oh, I do have a question.
I do, yeah. There's one. So it's about watering in pots.
Okay.
So like pot watering.
So with your pots, you are going to be upping that water a little bit more because your pots are probably sitting on concrete or stone of some sorts, most likely, right? It's probably sitting up against a wall, which is creating radiant heat. The ground is creating radiant heat. The roots are above the ground, so they're warming up. So mulching your pots is not a bad idea. So if you have room in a pot and it's not full to the brim, you can add a little mulch inside there to help kind of keep it a little bit cooler. Make sure you're watering to the point that water's coming out the bottom. Always have a hole in the bottom of your pot. That is a must when you have plants outside. Also, I'm not a fan of saucers. Most horticulturalists are not a fan of saucers. Saucers are obviously what catches the water. A lot of people put saucers in there because they don't want to stain their concrete or their stone or whatever they have it on. But have you ever moved a saucer and you have a big old condensation ring there anyways? So it actually doesn't even really work. Pot feet are the way to go. We have really great pot feet. My favorite ones are these little pie-shaped ones that are really thin and they're shaped like a piece of pie, and you slide them underneath and they're black so you can't even see them. It pops it up off the ground. The water drains freely because the plants don't want to sit in water. That's how you get a lot of tip burn. So when you see the tips of your plants that are getting kind of brown, it's because the plants are sitting in water or there's too much salt in your water and it's not getting flushed through and it's starting to burn the tips of the leaves. So having it on pot feet helps because it flushes that out. And when you have things in pots, because it flushes it out, you do need to fertilize a little bit more. That's why I say with citrus, fertilize more than what it says on the back of the box here. This says 3 times a year. The ones in the pot should be 6 times a year because the fertilizer does flush out the bottom and the roots can't keep searching for it. So that's a really important thing to do. In general, it's a good idea to do like one really big soaking this month, the whole entire garden, your pots in the ground, all of that, and do another one next month too to help dispatch all the like different kinds of little salts and stuff that build up in there that cause tip burn. So it's not a bad idea to do that this month, the next month. You don't need to do that all the time, but that will help with the salt problems as well. So up your watering. Again, big pots. I tell everybody, go as big as you kind of can, because the bigger the pot is, the easier it is on you to maintain it. When you keep something in a teeny tiny little pot, it becomes really root bound. There's not a lot of soil or nutrients available for those roots. They dry out really fast, so you want to go into a bigger pot than you kind of think. I see so many people coming in, they've got this nice big plant, and they've got a pot that's exactly the same size of the pot that this is currently in. That's not how you want to do it. House plants are different. House plants, you can do that. Outside plants, no. They put them in as small of a container as possible to make it easier on you to plant in the ground, because that's what they're typically thinking you're going to do, so you don't have to do a big old hole for it. And they also put them as small as a container as possible so they can grow more plants in a space, because more plants, more money, right? So make sure you go into a bigger container. General rule is 2 times as big as the container that it's currently in, sometimes more than that. Look how big the plant gets. If the plant gets really big and it gets like 15 feet tall, you need a big old pot for that. So make sure you do a nice size pot. Mulch, up that water a little bit. Just add 1 day to what you're currently doing. If your plants are happy as they are right now with what you're watering, just pick it up by a day possibly, and just watch for it. You don't want to waterlog your plants. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
And then do we have more?
Yeah, there's a couple more. I'll just do a couple more just because we're running out of time
right.
here. One is actually from David Rizzo.
Oh, well, hi, David Rizzo.
And
Did I
it
mess anything up?
He said you did a great job.
Yay.
What was your favorite compost?
Okay, he wants to know what my favorite compost is. He's a big Malibu fan. I do love Malibu. It's a great compost. That's the one that I have right here because I thought about David. Malibu or Seacoast, both of them are really good. The difference is Malibu is steer-based and Seacoast is all sea-based, so ground-up shells, things like that. But both of them are super rich, so you want to make sure that when you're using them, like if you're going to use them as just a top layer of compost, which I do every July, I just put a nice thin layer down because my soil's pretty good now at this point. I dig in my soil and I'm like, wow, this is great soil, but it's because I've worked really hard on it. So that's a really great one. I love their potting soil too. Malibu is my favorite potting soil. It drains really well. It's a really nice one. The Seacoast one is great too. So those are the 2 main composts that we have, but super, super rich. You're not going to plant directly in that. That would not be a good idea. Do not use compost as potting soil. Don't use potting soil as compost. They have 2 very different purposes. So I like both of them. I know David is a giant Malibu fan. So hi, David. I did promote your Malibu for you. Thank you for watching.
Yeah. And that last question was, what is a good deer repellent?
Well, we don't have a lot of deer problems here.
Yeah.
There are a lot of plants that deers will not go to because we don't have a ton here. It's not one that I'm super duper familiar with. Poisonous plants, they're not going to eat. The problem with deer and anything warm-blooded is it's really basically a game of physical barriers to keep them away from it, making it as inconvenient for them as possible to come to your plants. We have something called Critter Ritter that smells bad. It's like a granular that you can sprinkle down. It is not a one-time deal. The way I kind of explain how that works is you want to sprinkle that around the plants. The deers, the rabbits, the squirrels, the rats, because they'll eat things too, will come up to it. It smells bad and they're like, ugh, and they like go away. But that smell does dissipate over time. So once they're like, oh, it doesn't smell bad, I'll go back. It's a long game for you. You have to make it hard for them to come and eat and not smell good. And eventually they're going to be like, it's not worth it. Every time I come here, it stinks really bad. I'm going to leave. Imagine if you had a favorite restaurant, you went there all the time and it started to smell bad. Eventually you're just not going to go anymore. If every time you go in and you're like, this is gross, that's what you're trying to do. So you're trying to break their habit. They are warm-blooded animals just like that. They're habitual just like us, right? So you got to make it so they don't want to come. Physical barriers and make it smell bad. There are certain things that they will not eat, and I know that's something that you can easily look up. I know Western Sunset Garden, if you look them up and put in deer repellent plants, they have a whole big list of it. Things like, I know Bergmansia is on there. Some other, like poisonous stuff is on there because they're smart enough to know to not eat that. Anything in the Euphorbia family, they will not eat. So it's a long process. If you want to do something like a dahlia, they will eat a dahlia in a heartbeat. You're going to have to put something around it, and you're going to have to make it so eventually they're just like, it's not worth it to come in this yard anymore because it stinks all the time. So that does work, but you've got to keep putting it down. or you got to keep them covered up, basically. So, okay, we're all good. I'm going to tune out now, and then thank you so much for watching. It was really fun to do this. It's been a while since I've done a live stream. We used to do it all the time, and David's the guy for that, and he's so good. And thank you for watching, David. We miss you today. And come into the store. We have so many fun things going on. The store looks gorgeous. Check out all the hummingbirds. Check out all the monarchs. It's like they got the memo, and they're all here. It's so fun. And come say hi. Ask us questions. Put your questions down below if you came into this later. Water, mulch, check for bugs, check for fungal problems, treat things, keep things deadheaded, keep things tidy, because it's getting hot. There are some things that you can plant, but now is the time to kind of enjoy and just make sure that everything stays nice. So thank you so much. Be well, be safe, and happy gardening.
Yes.
Bye.